Hi, newsletter friends. So good to see you. I'm really enjoying these little vlogs, these little video vignettes of how things are going in my own classroom, shedding some light on what it looks like to teach from an inquiry stance from my own space, but also sharing some examples and conversations and some of the work that I engage in with schools around the world. And these little videos are meant to be provocations for you, something to spark some curiosity, something to kind of sink your practice into and to kind of stop and pause and reflect on what you're hearing and how you can maybe bring it to life in your context in your school and in your own classroom. So I wanted to share a little story from one of my partner schools in Australia. And with this particular partner school, I meet with different teams, different grade levels quite consistently. Sometimes it's every week. My evening, my late afternoon is their first thing in the morning there the next day. And the timing really aligns for us to be able to connect when students aren't in the building, where teachers have some time and space to pause, reflect, and share how things are going in their practice. And I was on a recent call in a small group setting. There were 3 teachers and myself talking about how agency is being developed in their classroom practice, how they're mindfully and intentionally planning units of inquiry across their school year with an increase of agency in mind. And this particular teacher, a kindergarten teacher, shared some amazing examples of agency in the literacy setting. In fact, every week she hosts writing conferences with her kindergarten kids, and she gets them to sit down with her for roughly 10 minutes of sitting, and they engage in some really meaningful, clear, and concise reflection on each particular student's writing, comparing it to success criteria and identifying next steps in terms of growth. And I just thought, this is wizardry. How do you get 5-year-olds to sit down for 10 minutes and talk about their writing each and every day? And what are the rest of your students doing as these particular students are sitting down with you? I can only imagine how difficult it must be to have a one-on-one conversation when you have 20-something other kids in the room. And what are they doing that's keeping their attention and their focus and their interest as you are in that rich conferencing feedback cycle with each particular student? And she told me some amazing things, and I want to share some of those amazing things with you. Number one, she said, well, all the other kids are engaged in deep reflection and comparing the feedback to their success criteria and working on their next steps, whether the next step is getting ready for the conference with me, or whether the next step is taking what was said in the conference and applying it, or maybe even the next step is to engage in co-writing. That kind of peer collaborative workshopping where kids sit next to each other and they're writing and they're talking and they're writing. And I said, you do that with 5-year-olds? She said, yeah. And I said, stop, shut the front door. I said, you certainly weren't doing that in the first term. They're in the 3rd term. They just finished the 3rd term. They're on break right now. They're entering 4th term, in a couple weeks. I said, you certainly didn't begin that way. And she said, heavens no, Trevor. She said, when I started this process, I could barely get each student to focus and reflect for 30 seconds. And I said, isn't that something? To get to this rich co-designed conferencing space that she is in now, it took 3/4 of the school year of routines, and not just routines in terms of structures, but also routines in terms of modeling, in terms of the reflective prompts, in terms of the bringing the success criteria to a really student-centered space where they understand the language and they understand how to reflect on said success criteria to show evidence of it in their writing. And then even the deep reflection and action of putting that feedback into practice. What do you do once you have feedback? Now you need to go do something with it. She said, yeah, it took me months to get to that place. And I said, that is fascinating because you shared this amazing conferencing example with me. And I want to do a deep dive into how do you do that? What does that look like, sound like, and feel like? So I could share that with my teacher friends here on my newsletter and with the schools I support. And what I'm hearing from you is it actually began with some really small steps, some really intentional steps. And so the next question I asked my colleague was, how did you stick with it? Like that must have been so frustrating when the 30-second conference was all you got from your students, or when you were trying to speak and coach and model to a whole room full of students and they weren't grounded in the purpose, they didn't understand the power of the conversation. How did you stick with it when it was so challenging? And she said, I trusted the process. She said, I had a really clear vision of where I wanted to get to, and I knew it would take a while. I knew it wouldn't happen overnight. And then I asked her some clear questions about, well, what are the return on investment now? What are you seeing in terms of benefit? And thankful for you having invested in those things early that have now taken you to this place later. And she said all the things that, I'd hope teachers would say. Students are very excited about writing. They're engaged in writing. They find writing enjoyable, dare I say, fun. And then the writing is actually better because students are understanding the success criteria and the feedback. Their writing is actually improving across time. I thought, wow, that seems like the perfect balance that we're trying to strike between risk, taking a risk in and what we're doing and how we're spending time, and the return on investment over that risk and what is the outcome later on in the school year. And I was so thankful. Partway through the conversation, I had to say, I need to record this. Pause. Can I record? Hit the record, because there was just so much surfacing in my thinking that I wanted to share with you all. So, case in point, I kindly nudge you to clearly have a target, a vision where you want to have your students be at some point in the future with regards to agency, with regards to inquiry, with regards to ownership over learning. Have that clear vision and, write it down, anchor it, have that target. And then be reflective of what are the small steps that are going to be, several, in this case, 3 terms worth. What are the small steps? Where are you going to start? And what are the next steps from there? How are we going to take that small start and take it to this big dream, this big vision? And find comfort in the pace. Find comfort in those small steps as the learning unfolds before you. Because again, it will yield the desired fruit if planned intentionally and if stuck with by the teacher. Fascinating learning. Again, I'm so thankful for this work that I engage in with teachers around the world, such as you. I do respond to these emails. So if there's a question, if there's a comment, kind words, whatever it may be, I will respond. So thank you for those of you who do reply to the newsletter. It is me making them and responding to them. So I greatly appreciate you. And wherever you are, I hope you're happy. I hope you're healthy. And I hope you're well. Bye for now.